I lived alone in a small house in Upper Wisconsin. It's in a small community with a couple dozen houses in the area, but it's a few miles away from town. I'd been living in that same house for about 4 years, and for the most part, I hadn't had any issues. I liked not being in a busy area and just having trees surrounding the community. I worked a normal 9-to-5 job though, which meant driving into town most days and getting home around 6:00. This all happened last year, and afterwards I sold my house and moved closer to town because the thought of it happening again still gives me chills. I woke up one morning at my usual time to get ready for work. I got dressed too, made a bowl of cereal, then drove into town. At 5:00, I started the drive back home. The sun was setting, and by the time I pulled into my driveway, it was dark out. I headed inside and dropped my bag on the kitchen chair, then started searching through the pantry for something to eat for dinner. As I looked through the shelves though, I noticed something odd. The box of cereal I had for breakfast wasn't where I remembered to have put it. Actually, it wasn't anywhere at all. I looked around the kitchen for a minute, just really confused and thinking that I was losing my mind. I got frustrated after a bit and gave up making a quick dinner and trying to enjoy the rest of the night. At 10:00, my eyes were getting really heavy, so I turned off the TV and stumbled into the kitchen to fill up my water bottle before bed. Then I went over to the back door to turn off the back porch lights. But just before I switched them off, I saw something far back at the edge of the yard. A figure standing among the trees, just past the reach of the lights. I had no way to get a closer look, so I just stood there looking at them for a few seconds until I saw them walk away deeper into the forest. It was really strange and gave me chills, but I wasn't really sure what exactly even happened. I was more confused than anything. I switched off the lights and went to bed. In the morning, I got ready for work again and went downstairs. But when I opened the pantry, the box of cereal was there, the one that I thought had been missing. It was sitting right where I'd left it. I figured I just missed it somehow and quickly ate and went to work. All day though, I sat at my desk thinking about it. The more I thought of it, the more sure I was that it was not there yesterday. Then the figure by my house came to mind and only got me more freaked out. It was Friday though, so I had the weekend to relax and collect myself at 4:00. My boss let the staff go home early, which was a big relief for me because I couldn't focus anyways. I drove home, getting there just before 5:00. As soon as I stepped through the door though, something was off. I didn't know what, but I could just feel it. I walked into the kitchen and everything seemed to be in place. I froze. It came from the living room. "Hello," I called out. It was quiet again. I stepped slowly to the entryway of the living room and scanned the room. I took a few more steps in and walked carefully through, checking behind everything. There was nothing and no one. I went back by the front door, preparing to check upstairs when I heard sudden footsteps shuffling through the kitchen. I turned my head and looked down the hallway. A man was standing at the far end, looking at me. He was like my brain and body just shut down for a second as we stared at each other. I spun around and swung open the front door. I heard his footsteps coming up behind me as I sprinted out of the house and ran all the way to my neighbor's house. They called the police for me and let me stay with them until they arrived. The man was, of course, gone by then, but they found one of the window hinges to be broken, allowing access to the home even when locked. They also found some disturbing evidence of the man having likely been spending hours inside my house, eating my food and everything. There was no way to tell how long it had been going on for. After that, I put my house up for sale and stayed with some relatives until I was able to move. I don't know if that man was harmful or if he was just living in my house because he could. But I could never shake the sight of him standing at the end of my hallway, staring at me with those dead eyes. This happened when I was home alone as a kid. It was the summertime and I was home during summer break. Both my parents were at work, and I think I was about 12 years old. I have an older brother and he went to one of his friends' houses that day. When I was home alone, I would just hang out and do whatever. Usually, I would go on the computer that we had and play Minecraft or something like that. It was probably sometime in the early afternoon, and I've been on the computer in the living room for a while. I moved into the kitchen to get something to eat. The kitchen was at the back side of the house, and we lived in a split level. I will also mention that the neighborhood was pretty average and a little bit on the quieter side. It was when I was standing in the kitchen that I saw something out the window. I just barely saw movement at first, but it looked like somebody was walking by. I moved over to another window to see. That's when I saw a man walking to the back side of the house. He was wearing a sort of construction vest and had a hat on. I realized that it must be the meter reader. I remember that they came around every so often to our house. I calmed down almost immediately. I've been a little worried seeing a guy walking into our backyard. He went to the very back side of our house, and near one of the basement windows, I went back to finding some food in the kitchen. After I was in the kitchen for a good 5 minutes though, I looked over and noticed that the guy was still there. Usually they would come and go really quick and only be there for like a minute at most. I went back into the living room to go back on the computer, but a short time later, I just had the feeling that I should get up and make sure that the man was now gone. Maybe it was because I was home alone and a kid, so I was a little bit paranoid. I carefully walked back over to the window and could see that the man was actually still there. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't tell exactly what he was doing because I could only see part of him from the angle that I was at, which was higher up than he was. He seemed to be doing something and was near the basement window, but I couldn't tell what exactly he was doing. I thought about going downstairs and looking out of that window, but I knew that the man would see me right away if I did. I went to walk over to another window upstairs, which would have a better angle, but I had to be careful so the guy wouldn't see me. Unfortunately, I really messed up. As I was walking over, I accidentally hit a can that was near the edge of a counter in the kitchen. I knocked it over and it fell onto the ground. This made a loud noise, and the next thing I knew, I saw the man quickly walking away. He moved back to the side of the house. I moved to the front of the house, and I watched the man casually walking down the street until I could no longer see him. I felt like he was really suspicious. I questioned whether he was even a meter reader or not. Why would he leave so suddenly like that? For the most part though, I was just happy that he was now gone. I went back to the computer. I stayed there for the most part until my brother and parents came back home. When they did, I didn't even think to tell them about the guy that had been there. I thought he was gone for good. My brother's bedroom, as well as mine, happened to be in the basement, and my parents' bedroom was upstairs. Because it was summertime, we would stay up pretty much as late as we wanted. I remember that on this night, my parents went to bed and my brother went down to his bedroom. I stayed up and was on the computer. All of the lights in the house were off, except for a small lamp in the living room near me. I stayed up on the computer until I got really tired, which was probably at about 1:00 a.m. Then I turned off the lamp and went downstairs to go to bed. When I got downstairs, I had to walk past a little living room that was in the basement in order to get to my bedroom. As I was walking past, I happened to see something in the window. The man was back. I could only see a figure of a man, but I could guess who it was. This was the same window that he had been at earlier in the day. I then heard noises coming from the window as if it was going to come open. I was suddenly really afraid. It was really dark down there, and I hit the light switch, which I happened to be really close to. When this happened, it lit up the whole room, and I could no longer see the man very well. I heard some noise from right outside the window though, and then it sounded like he was running away. I went running as well, but back upstairs into my parents' bedroom. I knocked on their door and yelled for them to wake up. About a minute later, my dad came out asking what was going on. By the time I explained it all, the man was long gone. My dad went out and inspected the house all around, though he was able to find that the back window the man kept messing with had quite a bit of damage. It had almost came off. It was like the man had been trying to remove the window and get inside the house, and he was really close to succeeding. After that night though, the man never came back. I remember being really scared for a while that he would, and I slept upstairs on the couch because I felt safer there. Luckily, he never did. this happened about 10 years ago. I think about 12 or 13 at the time. One night on a Friday after I got home from school, my parents told me they were going to dinner with some friends. That meant I would be home alone for the night. I was the only child, and my parents would occasionally leave me alone. I always enjoyed it because I felt cool and grown up to have the whole house to myself. I asked my parents if I could have my friend Ryan over, and he came over a little bit later. We played some basketball and then my parents left. Me and Ryan played some video games for a few hours after that, and then he left to go home. I stayed in my room playing Madden on my PlayStation. About 20 minutes later, I thought I heard a noise coming from downstairs. It was now around 9. Zero pimp, so I assumed it was my parents, and I thought nothing of it. However, not too long after that, I got a call from my mom on the phone, and she told me that they wouldn't be home for about another hour. Still, I had forgotten about the noise at that point, and I kept playing video games. That is, until out of the corner of my eye, I was sure I saw somebody walk past my bedroom and down the hall. I had my bedroom door open only about a foot or two, but I was sure I had seen somebody walk by. I tried to convince myself that it was just our cat or something. But suddenly, I got really creeped out, and I wasn't feeling safe in my bedroom anymore. I wanted to get out of the house, but I was afraid of what I had seen. I waited in silence to see if I could hear anything else, but there was no noise. Then I heard the floor creak at the end of the hall past my bedroom. My door didn't have a lock on it and was on the second floor, so I felt if I made a run for it, I would be able to safely get downstairs and outside. I just didn't know who or what was at the end of my hallway. I was too scared to make any noise or look down the hall. I just sat there in my chair, staring at the crack in my door to see if whoever was there would walk by again. After a couple of minutes, I finally got enough courage to walk over to the door. I did it as quietly as possible and then stood next to the door and listened. I didn't hear anything. So I decided that on the count of 3, I would quickly walk out of my room and down the stairs as quietly as possible, and then go out of my house. I took a deep breath and quickly left my room. But as I did, I guessed that my curiosity got the better of me, and I looked to the end of the hallway. I saw a dirty woman with really messy hair crouched down against the wall with her hands over her face. As soon as she saw me, she started to scream. I was more than freaked out, and I ran as fast as I could down the stairs and out the front door. As I did, I heard her screaming, getting louder and louder. When I got outside, I immediately took out my phone and called my parents. They told me to call the police, so I did, and then I ran to Ryan's house, which was about 5 minutes away. My parents picked me up from Ryan's, and then we all went back to my house, where we saw multiple police cars with flashing lights, as well as an ambulance. I had to talk to the police, and my parents did for a while too. I guess when Ryan left out the front door, he left it open, and a lady that was messed up on drugs walked right in. It was something I will never forget.